What is it about yoga philosophy that fascinates so many people today? And what is yoga philosophy? And if you are a Christian, what is it with yoga philosophy compared to this Bible? What's the difference? How can we be inspired by yoga philosophy but still keep the faith intact and all of these things? I'm going to do some videos that will dive into this topic, and I hope you want to see all of them. Today, it's about what yoga philosophy is and is not. So when I started diving into this topic 7 years ago, I was looking for the book that explained to me what yoga philosophy was. But I was looking in vain because such a book does not exist. And I was so confused because I found a strain of thought, a philosophy in this book and another one in this book and another one in this one. And I was like, then what is the right thought? Like if you want to have a rational, logical, founded out, how does that work? And it does not work that way, because yoga philosophy is a gathering of thoughts that we in modern time and age have interpreted and made more self-development like than what they might have been intended to. So yoga philosophy you don't find just in one book. I mean, there might be one now, right? But you find in different kinds of school. You find some stories in the Vedic and Upanishads text written before Christ. You find some in Bhagavad Gita, a story about a prince having a conversation with incarnation of a god, talking about different moral thoughts. You find it in the Yoga Sutras. This is probably the most well-known, with the 8 limbs of yoga. It's very briefly actually written in the Yoga Sutras, but it's there. You find it maybe in Hatha Yoga, a book from the Middle Age, where you for the first time start to dive more into yoga as a posturally activity, so to say. Before it was mainly seated. And some of these things that you find here is actually ideas from Tantra. Not Tantra yoga, but Tantra philosophy. So a lot of the modern philosophy is actually from the tantric thinking, which is kind of interesting. And that blew my mind back then. But just know that philosophy, yoga philosophy, is not just one thing. Think of different schools. India, where yoga kind of emerged from, is a huge country. And you had north and south, east and west, and different schools. You weren't traveling that much at that time, right? Had their different thoughts and ideas. So of course things develop differently. And when we as Western people today, and 100 years ago when the British came to India and, find all this, they were like, wow, so many new ideas. And then they interpreted them. And we still do that today. And some find this interpretation of some of these old ideas super, super fascinating and inspiring. I also know a lot of Christian people that find that inspiring, and they don't compromise on their faith in the Bible, but still. In my life, I find it more interesting, not as inspiring as such, because I find my inspiration other places, but I like to learn about it, also to teach it to other people, but also because the thing is, I'm just curious about what people have thought about life and death and the good life and all of that. So that's why I look at it. Now, philosophy, that is different from religion. Philosophy is a way of thinking or a way of looking at life, whereas religion often gives you a set of belief systems that you have to agree on, so to say, or believe in, and you are religious, right? Where philosophy is more open, looking at knowledge, looking at life, and maybe analyzing it. And that there might be different strains and schools of philosophy as well. Now, can yoga philosophy become religious? Sure. I mean, we have tamas and raja, which is a thought about the active, explosive energy in us, and we have the more subtle, lazy energy in us. Now I'm saying the word energy as well. So if this energy is connected to reincarnation, it's connected to karma and different kinds of things, I would say that it becomes more religious than just a philosophy, especially if it's talked about as a common sense thing that we are all reborn ever so often, right? So if I hear that in a yoga studio, I would often go up to the teacher and say, you say it's yoga philosophy, but to me the way you talk about it is more religious. And they might be surprised about that. So you can talk about, and you can be, again, inspired by it, you can learn from it, learn about your own life, but having it as a foundation where you build your life on and you start to believe in these more broader perspectives of afterlife, what gives you salvation and all of these things, then I believe it becomes more religious. It's not often I see it in yoga studios, but of course it's there. I hope this gave you a better understanding of what yoga philosophy is. If you want to know more about it and the history of yoga, I have written a book together with other people called it Learning CrossYoga. There's around plus 100 pages in this book with yoga history and yoga philosophy, where we try to explain what it is, but also look at it through the lenses of theology. So you can find this at any Amazon store if you want to dive more into that and read stuff. And there's a literature list at the end if you want some advice on where to go, if you want to dive more into these things. I hope that this was inspiring, and I hope to see you in the next video.